I want to talk to you today about something that sounds simple but is surrounded by surprising confusion and conflicting advice, and that genuinely matters for a great many older adults' hearts and health: water, hydration, and its connection to your heart and circulation. Because you'll hear all sorts of things. Drink 8 glasses a day, drink as much as you can. Or, confusingly, that with heart conditions you must limit fluids, and people get genuinely muddled about how much to drink, especially as they age and especially with a heart condition. So today I want to clear up the confusion about water and the heart, explain why hydration matters, why older adults are prone to dehydration, the special and sometimes opposite considerations for those with heart conditions like heart failure, and how to get your fluid balance right in partnership with your doctor. And I'll keep this calm and practical, because while there's confusion here, understanding the basics and that fluid needs are individual, especially with heart conditions, helps you stay properly hydrated and protect your heart, working with your doctor. This is an area where individual circumstances really matter, so your doctor's guidance is especially important. Let me start with why hydration matters and why older adults are prone to dehydration, because that's the foundation for most people. Your body needs adequate fluid to function. Water makes up much of your body and is essential for your blood volume and circulation, your blood pressure, your kidneys, your temperature regulation, and much more. For most older adults, the common problem is not drinking too much but drinking too little, becoming dehydrated, and there are clear reasons. As I've discussed, the sense of thirst fades with age, so older adults often don't feel thirsty even when they need fluid, and so drink too little. Some deliberately limit fluids to avoid frequent urination or accidents. And various factors and medications affect fluid balance. Dehydration in older adults genuinely matters for the heart and circulation, because too little fluid lowers blood volume, which can drop blood pressure, contributing to the dizziness on standing and falls I've discussed, can strain the heart and circulation, can affect the kidneys, and can cause confusion, weakness, and other problems, and can worsen other conditions. So for most older adults, hydration matters because the body needs adequate fluid for circulation, blood pressure, and much else. And the common problem is dehydration, from fading thirst and deliberate fluid limiting, which genuinely affects the heart, blood pressure, kidneys, and well-being. So for most, adequate hydration is the goal, and dehydration the common risk. So staying adequately hydrated matters for most older adults. Let me give you the general guidance on hydration for most people, before the important exception, because it helps to have a sensible baseline. For most older adults without a condition requiring fluid restriction, the aim is to stay adequately hydrated by drinking regularly through the day rather than relying on thirst, which is an unreliable guide in older age. Rather than fixating on a rigid number like a precise count of glasses, which is part of the confusion, the practical approach is to drink regularly and enough that you're not dehydrated, with one useful simple indicator being the color of your urine, pale being a sign of good hydration and dark, a sign you need more fluid, though some medications and supplements can affect this. Water is ideal, and other fluids and water-rich foods contribute, while being mindful that caffeine and alcohol can be dehydrating. You need more in hot weather, when active, or when unwell, as I've discussed about heat. So for most older adults, the guidance is to drink regularly through the day, not relying on thirst, aiming to stay adequately hydrated, using urine color as a rough guide, favoring water, and drinking more in heat or illness, rather than fixating on a rigid number. So sensible regular drinking to stay adequately hydrated, guided by need rather than a rigid count, is the baseline for most. But now let me turn to the crucial exception. So regular adequate hydration guided by need is the baseline. Let me explain the crucial and opposite consideration for those with certain heart conditions, especially heart failure, because this is where the confusion and the danger lie. Here's the genuinely important point that causes much confusion. While most older adults need to ensure they drink enough, some people, particularly those with certain heart conditions like heart failure or certain kidney conditions, may actually need to limit their fluid intake, because their condition means the body can't handle excess fluid well, so too much fluid can build up and worsen their condition. In heart failure, which I've discussed, the heart doesn't pump efficiently and fluid can accumulate, causing swelling and breathlessness. So people with heart failure are often advised to limit their fluid and sometimes salt intake to avoid overloading their system, and may take water pills, diuretics, to remove excess fluid. This is the opposite of the general advice to drink plenty, which is exactly why fluid advice can't be one size fits all and why individual guidance from your doctor is so important. So the crucial exception is that people with certain heart conditions like heart failure or certain kidney conditions may need to limit rather than increase their fluid because their bodies can't handle excess, which is the opposite of the general advice and a major source of confusion, making individualized guidance from your doctor essential. So fluid advice is individual, and some, especially with heart failure, need to limit rather than increase fluid. So the heart failure exception reverses the usual advice. Let me stress why this individual difference matters so much, because getting it wrong either way is harmful. The reason this matters so much is that the right fluid balance is genuinely individual, and getting it wrong in either direction can harm you. For most older adults, the risk is dehydration from drinking too little, which strains the heart and circulation, drops blood pressure, risks falls and kidney problems, and causes confusion and weakness. But for someone with heart failure or certain kidney conditions, the risk can be the opposite, that drinking too much overloads their system and worsens their condition, causing fluid buildup, swelling, and breathlessness. So the same advice, drink plenty, that's right for most, could be harmful for someone with heart failure, and the fluid restriction right for heart failure would be harmful as general advice. This is exactly why you must not simply follow generic fluid advice if you have a heart or kidney condition, but follow your doctor's individual guidance, and why understanding that fluid needs are individual is so important. So the individual difference matters enormously because both dehydration and fluid overload are harmful in opposite situations. So getting your fluid balance right means following guidance individualized to your condition, especially with heart failure or kidney problems. So individual fluid balance, right for your situation, is what matters. So getting it right means individualized guidance. Let me give you what to do, because the practical approach follows from this individuality. First, and most importantly, if you have a heart condition like heart failure, a kidney condition, or any condition affecting fluid balance, follow your doctor's specific guidance on how much fluid to drink, since you may need to limit it, and don't simply follow generic drink plenty advice. Ask your doctor what's right for you, and if you take water pills, take them as prescribed. For those with heart failure, also follow any advice on limiting salt, and watch for signs of fluid buildup, like increasing swelling, weight gain, or breathlessness, which I've discussed, and report them to your doctor. And weighing yourself regularly is often advised to catch fluid buildup. Second, for most older adults without such a condition, focus on staying adequately hydrated. Drink regularly through the day, not relying on thirst, aiming for adequate hydration using urine color as a rough guide, favoring water, and drinking more in heat or illness. Third, whoever you are, if you're unsure how much you should drink, especially with any heart or kidney condition, ask your doctor, since this is genuinely individual. So follow your doctor's individual fluid guidance if you have heart failure or a kidney condition, possibly limiting fluid and salt and watching for fluid buildup, while most others should focus on staying adequately hydrated, and everyone unsure should ask their doctor. So individualized fluid management, per your condition and your doctor's guidance, is the practical approach. So manage fluid per your individual situation. Let me address the signs of getting it wrong in either direction, because recognizing them helps. Signs of dehydration, the common problem for most older adults, include thirst, though unreliable, dark urine, dry mouth, dizziness or lightheadedness, especially on standing, weakness, tiredness, confusion, and reduced urination, and these warrant drinking more and, if severe, medical attention, since significant dehydration can be serious in older adults. Signs of fluid overload, relevant especially for those with heart failure, include increasing swelling in the legs, ankles, or abdomen, rapid weight gain, increasing breathlessness, especially on lying flat or at night, and feeling worse. And these warrant prompt medical attention, as I've discussed about heart failure. So recognizing the signs of dehydration, dark urine, dizziness, weakness, confusion, which call for more fluid and possibly care, and the signs of fluid overload, swelling, weight gain, breathlessness, which call for prompt medical attention, helps you and your doctor keep your fluid balance right. So knowing the signs of both dehydration and fluid overload helps you stay in the right balance and seek care when needed. So recognizing both extreme signs helps. Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out in two opposite cases, because the contrast is the whole point. First, picture a woman in her 70s without a heart or kidney condition who, because her thirst has faded and she wants to avoid frequent bathroom trips, drinks too little and becomes mildly dehydrated, feeling dizzy on standing, weak and occasionally confused, with her low fluid straining her circulation and risking falls. For her, the right answer is to drink more, regularly through the day, aiming for adequate hydration, which resolves her symptoms, the general advice being correct for her. Now picture a man in his 70s with heart failure who hears the general advice to drink plenty of water and dutifully drinks a great deal, only to find his legs swelling more and his breathlessness worsening, because his failing heart can't handle the excess fluid which is building up, the general advice being harmful for him. For him, the right answer, from his doctor, is actually to limit his fluid and salt, take his water pills, and watch for fluid buildup, which improves his condition. The contrast couldn't be clearer. The same drink plenty advice that helped the first person harmed the second, because their situations were opposite, which is exactly why fluid needs are individual and why following your doctor's guidance for your condition, rather than generic advice, matters so much. So the opposite cases show why individual fluid guidance is essential. So matching fluid to the individual is everything. And let me speak directly to those of you caring for or close to an older person, because fluid balance is confusing and individual, and you can help. Understand that for most older adults, the common problem is dehydration, from fading thirst and deliberate fluid limiting, which strains the heart and circulation and risks dizziness, falls, and confusion, so most need encouragement to stay adequately hydrated. But, crucially, understand that some, particularly those with heart failure or certain kidney conditions, may need to limit fluid because their bodies can't handle excess, which is the opposite, so generic drink plenty advice could harm them. So you can help by knowing which situation applies and following the doctor's individual guidance. For most, encouraging regular drinking through the day to stay hydrated. But for someone with heart failure or kidney problems, supporting their doctor's fluid and salt guidance, helping them take water pills as prescribed, and watching for signs of fluid buildup, swelling, weight gain, breathlessness, to report to the doctor. Help recognize dehydration, dark urine, dizziness, weakness, confusion in those at risk of it. And when unsure, especially with heart or kidney conditions, encourage asking the doctor. Helping a loved one get their individual fluid balance right, per their condition and their doctor's guidance, protects their heart and health, avoiding both dehydration and overload. So your help matching fluid to their individual situation genuinely protects them. Let me draw this all together. Water, hydration, and the heart is an area of surprising confusion because the right fluid balance is genuinely individual and the advice differs, even reverses, depending on your situation. For most older adults, the body needs adequate fluid for circulation, blood pressure, the kidneys, and much else. And the common problem is dehydration, from fading thirst and deliberate fluid. Limiting, which strains the heart and circulation, drops blood pressure, risks falls and kidney problems, and causes confusion and weakness. So the goal is to stay adequately hydrated by drinking regularly through the day, not relying on thirst, using urine color as a rough guide. But, crucially, some people, particularly those with heart failure or certain kidney conditions, may need to limit rather than increase their fluid because their bodies can't handle excess, which can build up and worsen their condition. the opposite of the general advice. So fluid advice can't be one size fits all. This matters enormously because both dehydration and fluid overload are harmful in opposite situations. So getting your fluid balance right means following guidance individualized to your condition, especially with heart failure or kidney problems, and asking your doctor when unsure. Recognizing the signs of both dehydration and fluid overload helps keep the balance right. So here's what I'll leave you with. First, understand that your body needs adequate fluid for your circulation, blood pressure, kidneys, and much else, and that for most older adults, the common problem is dehydration, from fading thirst and deliberate fluid limiting, which strains the heart, drops blood pressure, risks falls, and causes confusion and weakness. Second, for most older adults without a condition requiring fluid restriction, stay adequately hydrated by drinking regularly through the day, not relying on thirst, aiming for adequate hydration using urine color as a rough guide, favoring water, and drinking more in heat or illness, rather than fixating on a rigid number of glasses. Third, and crucially, understand that some people, particularly those with heart failure or certain kidney conditions, may need to limit rather than increase their fluid, because their bodies can't handle excess, which can build up and worsen their condition, the opposite of the general advice, so fluid needs are individual. Fourth, if you have heart failure, a kidney condition, or any condition affecting fluid balance, follow your doctor's specific fluid guidance rather than generic advice, possibly limiting fluid and salt, taking any water pills as prescribed, and watching for signs of fluid buildup, swelling, weight gain, or breathlessness to report to your doctor. And fifth, recognize the signs of both dehydration, dark urine, dizziness, weakness, confusion, calling for more fluid and possibly care, and fluid overload, swelling, weight gain, breathlessness, calling for prompt medical attention, and whenever you're unsure how much to drink, especially with a heart or kidney condition, ask your doctor. Getting your fluid balance right is genuinely individual, especially with heart conditions, so understanding that and following your doctor's guidance for your situation protects your heart and health, avoiding both dehydration and overload. So take care of yourself. Get your individual fluid balance right, stay adequately hydrated or appropriately limited per your condition, and follow your doctor's guidance. And because the right fluid balance is individual, especially with heart failure or kidney conditions, please treat how much to drink as something to determine with your own physician if you have such a condition, following their guidance rather than generic advice rather than as a substitute for that care. And never stop water pills or change your fluid plan on your own.